So we're going to talk a little bit about the mechanics of sharpening. If you take a knife, say this knife, when you're sharpening the very edge here. And if we zoom in on this, you can see it's a triangle or a wedge. So I'm going to do some drawing here. Alright. The blade is going to look something like this. It's going to come all the way out, and then at the end it's going to have a fine point. Maybe if I draw it out slightly larger. Like I said, it's a wedge or a triangle. It comes out here, and then most knives will have the bevel like this. So you sort of have the body of the blade here coming to the spine, and then the cutting edge is over here, very fine. Now what you see on a dull blade, if you look at it under a magnifying glass, is a very rounded over edge, and when light comes at it like this, it hits that rounded surface and it bounces back, which creates a reflection of light, which you can see with your eye. So if you go up to sunlight or a bright house light, you can see the reflection. You know it's for sure to be dull, and the more light you see, the duller it is. What you want is something like this with such a fine edge that it doesn't reflect any light at all. And that's going to be one of your gauges to see how sharp something is before you sharpen it, and maybe as you're sharpening it. In the sharpening process, if you have something that's rather dull, you're going to sharpen one side until you feel that burr, and then you flip it over, you sharpen the other side until you feel that burr. And eventually that round edge becomes worn away into a triangle shape. Now this edge is very fine, and what happens when you're cutting is you're putting pressure here on something very fine and delicate, and it's going to want to fold over one way or the other. And this causes a burr, and it causes a rounded edge. And that rounded edge doesn't cut very well. What you do to circumvent this problem is you take what's called a knife steel, and you run this along the edge of your blade, and it's going to straighten that bevel out. You want to match the angle of the knife with the angle of your knife's bevel, which is going to change from knife to knife. You just do this by eye. You want to run it away from the edge, just like we did with the whetstone. You do not want to come this way, although some people do. I wouldn't recommend it. You want to go away. Then you can go on the other side and do the same motion, just like this. This knife steel is made of a harder steel than what my knife is. I'm just going to straighten out that bevel and make it nice and sharp again. Eventually the edge is going to become worn and dull, and using the knife steel isn't going to bring it back to sharp again. At that point, you want to take your knife and stone it and actually wear away material to bring that edge back.